Welcome to the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. I'm Coach Lisa Callahan, a recovered emotional eater. I ended decades of self-inflicted struggles with food through taking a journey of self-discovery, which revealed the secrets of what was going on underneath the food. Throughout this podcast, we'll explore topics that are rarely talked about, like low self-esteem, lack of confidence, people-pleasing, and decades of self-sabotaging behaviors. Rather than just focusing on the food, we'll dive deeper into aspects of who you are as a person and how you ended up relying on food for comfort to begin with. My mission is simple: to empower women to regain their confidence and prioritize self-love, regardless of the number on the scale. Discover what you've really been craving, and trust me, it's not about the food. This podcast is based on insights shared from the Women's Emotional Eating Community Support Group on Facebook, so be sure to check out the show notes for the link to the group and a complimentary gift just for you. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Hey, welcome to another fun and insightful episode of the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. The topic today is how to lose 100 pounds by gaining a new perspective on life itself. And today I have a guest speaker with me. Her name is Laurie. And Laurie was already a guest speaker in episode 20. And we're doing another check-in with Laurie because the episode that we had her on for before was called How to Lose Weight and Get Off of Prescription Meds by Gaining a New Perspective on Life. So this is a continuation of Laurie's journey. Hi, Laurie. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to tell everybody my news.
I know. It was very exciting, actually, when we were on a coaching call in our Crush Everything Self-Discovery System, that you brought this out, and it was such a surprise in some ways. I mean, I can definitely see it in your face, and yet we don't really talk about weight much in our teachings and what we do. And so it was amazing. I remember that day that you came and you said, "Oh, Lisa, I'm at 90 pounds of loss." And I said, "Really? That's amazing." I feel like that is just such an amazing story. And we hear it quite often with women who have had some surgeries and different methods that they've used to like lose the 100 pounds. And you didn't go in that route. You didn't go in that direction. So just share with me a little bit about where you're at now. And what do you want to talk about with us today? What would you like to share?
Well, I'd like to share a couple things. I think the biggest thing, of course, is the 100 pounds, but so many other things have changed in my life due to losing the weight and due to the idea of I can do this sort of thing. I also have I was diagnosed as type 2 diabetes about 15 years ago. And because of the weight loss and because of the way I've changed my diet and the things that I do, and probably because of the way I think, even, I'm no longer considered a type 2 diabetic. My ranges for my A1C have been in normal, good, natural areas. So I cut out the short-term insulin about 3 months ago. And about a week ago, I quit doing the long acting insulin, and all my numbers have been so very good. And I all I can think is, I've somewhere in my mind I've changed, and I'm doing things differently. I'm eating differently.
And you're different. Yeah, you're different. And that's the coolest part about this whole thing, is that I'm not a weight loss coach. So you didn't come to me for weight loss. You didn't say, "Hey, Lisa, I want to lose 100 pounds." I'm not a physician. You didn't say to me, "Hey, Lisa, I want to get off." I think the last episode we talked about getting off of antidepressants and some heart medications, some blood pressure stuff. And now going further, you're off of diabetes medication. These are really critical like pieces to talk about, because like so many times people just think like, I can't get off my meds. And because of that, and they want to get off meds, everybody doesn't want to be on meds. They think about it as being, well, I have to lose weight. I have to lose weight. I have to lose weight. And that's the primary focus. For you, though, that wasn't the primary focus. That was actually like something that was somewhat unexpected.
A good side effect.
A good side effect. Yeah. So, what, when we started working together, which has only been like a year and a half, it hasn't even been 2 years. I don't think so, right?
No, it's going on 2 years, I think, at the end of the month.
Okay. So close to 2 years. And
Yeah.
yet, the struggles, like you said, you were on diabetes medication for 15 years. 15 years, and perhaps other medications before that. And as you were, you know, sitting inside of a body that was carrying extra baggage, extra weight, we're seeing now that some of that baggage wasn't just on the outside. There might have been more so baggage on the inside. So what we ended up working on together was like losing some of the weight that was inside of you, which has resulted in all of these amazing side effects. Is that kind of fair to say?
Yes, I agree with you totally, because I think that the way we talk and when we do our meetings and everything else, it just raises me up, and I think differently each time. It's like I'm looking at what's inside of me and what's going on, rather than looking at my size, or how I look, or how people perceive me to be. Even there's been times on the calls where I'll get off the call, and I'll be like, oh, I can't believe I told that to everybody. That was
I
and
love
she
it. I
repeated
love
it. Yeah, but
it. But
it
it feels
changed.
great, right? Doesn't it feel good to have a safe space to talk?
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, and I always knew that, and I felt it. That's why I do it. But afterwards, you're like, ay, ay, ay. What was
Well,
I?
and the coolest part, in my thoughts about the community and what we do is that we are not sitting around in drudgery complaining about things. We are actually, whatever we've spoken about, and everybody who's on these calls, you're wanting to gain a new perspective. So you might come with what seems like the problem, and then as we open space for that and we start to shift the mindset, we start to actually open things up. So it's not just like, oh, here's my complaint for the day. It's
Right.
an opportunity for us to actually then do some work with that, to say, hey, wait a minute. I'm thinking this, and this is feeling like a weight that's dragging me down. And it's not just a matter of like lifting up or being positive and la di da. Can you
Right.
explain a little bit about what that process feels like when you come in and you've got something that you kind of know you've got to work through, and yet at the moment you're like, ah, and yet you know that if you keep that weight on you, that's going to result in decisions that you're going to make that aren't going to serve your best interest. So it's actually a benefit to get the stuff that's weighing you down on the inside, get that out. And then you naturally are going to want to take better care of yourself. So is there anything that was like a pivotal thing, or something that, I don't know, was like a really important thing that you knew you had to work through this? Anything that comes to mind?
When I first came to you, and we talked, one of the big things I found that I couldn't answer the question of why every time I got upset, or every time there was something heavy on my mind or whatever, I would reach for food automatically. And I couldn't get past that. It was like I didn't know where to go with that information. And then when I talked to you, it was like you were like, yeah, I get it. I get that. I understand what you're saying. And I thought, okay, here we go. Here's somebody who is going to hear me and understand what I'm saying. And once I released, the anxiety and why I wasn't handling someone who made me angry or someone who hurt my feelings or whatever, I ate. So now when these things come up, I get angry or I get sad or I laugh because it's, silly. What was I thinking? I don't worry about what you're thinking about me. And
Yeah.
and I think that was probably the biggest step that I took through all our meetings and everything else, is that what people say is about themselves, and what I was hearing was about me. And
Oh yeah.
I had to change how I was perceiving what they were saying to me.
Oh yeah.
And that was the biggest thing, you know.
And that is an internal job, right? So that's something that
Oh,
you have to
absolutely.
you have to actually change. It's, not necessarily just a like, all right, I have to stop thinking that. It's a healing and a maturity of the version of you that's hearing what this person's saying and instantaneously getting like triggered into a narrow space where, you know, and the thing is too, is that like even that healing, it helps you get closer and connected to people more and more, because then people aren't walking on eggshells around you. People aren't afraid to make a lighthearted comment because you're not going to like fly off the handle. You're not highly sensitive to the point where you can't just, like you said, it's just like, all right, this is silly. What are we fighting about? It's just, it gets more toned down. Like
Mhm.
everything in life just gets lighter,
Yeah.
including the external weight that's was sitting on your actual frame, because the body, given half the chance, will heal itself. But if there's all this internal stuff that's like weighing you down, it's going to cause you to make decisions where you don't feel capable of being able to feel your feelings through and out. So then you're going to stop feeling and you're going to feel angry, but you're not going to really feel it. You're going to try and either fuel it with more thoughts. And those more thoughts could be grab the bag of chips. And those grab a bag of chips then is going to lead you to nobody cares about me. I'm worthless. What's wrong with, why are people so mean to me? How come I'm always in this position? Why don't people love me? Why can't people just like me the way I am? How come I have, and then the blame game starts and it just like
Yep. Yep.
rinse and repeat.
Yep. And and that's what I did all my life before this. And I think it's really important that that comes forward, because I did not know how to deal with this myself. And I had gone to therapy. I have tried different routes all through the years, because I knew, I knew there was an issue and I knew there were problems, but I just could not seem to reach them and do anything with them until I met you. And that, has been miraculous in my mind, because it's actually affecting more than just stopping eating when I get upset. It's playing into different emotions or different things that happen. I had major knee surgery. I had my knee replaced, and somewhere in my brain, it said, okay, 2 weeks on, you're done. You should be healed. You should be going. You should be able to do this. You should be able to do that. And people are looking at me like I was crazy, because my expectations for myself were unrealistic.
Unrealistic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I started thinking about that, and I thought, what are you so worried about? You're going to be 67 years old, and it's going to take a little longer to heal, and it's going to take, just love and understanding of myself. And then after I kind of had that talk with myself and did that, I think it was within like 3 days, I got up in the morning and I was doing different things and walking around, and I thought, huh, I haven't even thought about my knee. That's the
Right.
first time, so, I love it that it's putting things into perspective of what I've gained and what I'm gaining each and every day. So,
And that's why what we wanted to bring to this topic today, because everybody puts weight loss. I want to lose weight. I want to lose weight. The only weight that you are going to ever want to lose is the extra weight that's being like piled into your brain that is weighing everything else down. Because when you're heavy on the inside of your mind, of your ideas, of your thoughts, of your motivation or lack thereof it, you feel like you can't do this and you can't do that. That's a lot of weight on the inside. And so that's where now, because, and this is really what the whole premise of what we teach is that if you can gain a new perspective on yourself, on life, on your connections with other people, because I'm certain that this has created somewhat of a ripple effect on your idea, even about other family members or friends or whatever, like just how you see human people
right.
because you feel connected with yourself. So it's probably created a ripple effect. Is that true? Does that feel like it's helped a bit in just how
It,
you communicate and connect with other people?
yeah, my perception of my life and people around me has changed to be, I'm gonna coin that phrase, let them,
Yeah.
you um, because otherwise I didn't, because I took everything to heart and I took everything as, oh my God, do you really think that way about me? Or, and I wasn't seeing it through my real lens. I was seeing it
Right.
through this childish, oh, you hurt my feelings lens, and releasing those childish fears and those different, things like that gave me a different perception on people,
Yeah.
not only myself, but on people around me. And, and now, I think people around me are reacting differently to me, because I'm not, all of a sudden, I'm not, well, what did you say that for? What, you know, it's more like inside of me, I'm going, okay.
Yeah. And then, yeah. And then it's just the maturity. So now you're recognizing that what someone, and I think you shared this before, like what someone is saying, that is about them. What you hear is about you. And if you were hearing what someone else was saying from an immature version of yourself, like you said, this very kind of narrow minded, like, and all of a sudden your guard is up, and all we ever really want is connection,
Right.
And so what that ends up doing is that guard gets put up, and then you create isolation. And then once you're in isolation, then you convince yourself that the only thing you can rely on is food. There's your best friend, the food. But then all that does is create a reason why you would want to isolate to begin with. So
Yeah.
it disconnects.
Yeah. It creates a monster inside yourself. I think that, you are allowing to do whatever, instead of taking care of yourself. And once you release some of these things that are inside you that have hurt you and that you didn't understand and you kept looking at childishly, you know, it just changes your whole perspective on people and your life and and everything you're doing. The things I considered like really important, I had to always, make sure I was the best dressed one or the best, this or that. And now it's kind of like, can I be really comfortable there in pajamas? You think you can really?
So interesting. I was just out in where was I? Um Nashville, Tennessee. And I said to my partner, I was like, I know that people are going to be, I don't know, dressed in fancy shoes and cowboy boots and things or whatever. Like, is it okay if I'm just going to wear sneakers? I'm like, I can't. I'm like, I can't do it. I can't like walk the pavement, walk street with like uncomfortable shoes on. I'm like, I could put on these cute little boots to go into a restaurant, but like, just got to wear sneakers if I'm going to walk. So it's just that whole confidence is really, that's the internal stuff, right? And that doesn't mean that you have that now because you've like lost 100 pounds. That is coming from the inside. So if we had to give, some starters, maybe like just, I don't know, one or two or three things to just like start to invite somebody to investigate, because somebody who's listening to this podcast, maybe has always had the front thought, if I could just lose the weight, if I could just lose the weight. And with that thought in the front, well, you tell us, because you now have 100 pounds off. Had you ever thought, like, if I just lost the weight, then I'd be.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And why didn't that work?
Because I didn't heal the inside. I pretended that wasn't an important part, that somehow it was just a physical thing, that I was just eating too much and I had to overcome that, and
Which,
I,
which made you feel even more isolated, because then it becomes like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just shut my mouth? I used to say stuff like that to myself. I'd be like, if I could just zipper my mouth shut, like, yeah, I was like kind of mean to myself. Like I never addressed why was that there? Like, why were those decisions being made? So continue. I want to hear more about what you have to say.
I think, for people listening to this podcast, fear drove so much of what I did, not only fear of what was inside of me that I didn't want to bring out, that I was trying to protect, but also the fear that I would fail, or that people would think I was doing something weird, and I worried about, I worried about that because, I want to be normal. I don't want to be, the one that walks into the room and, oh, look at her size or whatever. And, people talk all the time, and I think I had to really overcome that fear to be able to go on this journey of healing myself, healing what was inside of me. And I think, to me, that was the biggest thing, that's fear. I had to overcome that. And I think for a lot of women who carry a lot of, baggage on the inside, and because of the baggage on the inside, they've added baggage on the outside. And this route that you've created, has opened that door and made me realize that, this is just me. This is me. This is who I am. And, I don't need to eat to stop those feelings anymore.
You can actually feel them.
Right.
And even going into that, I love this this thought, right? So you were saying that like the baggage on the inside gets carried on the outside, and how that there was this fear about like if you weren't, normal or eating whatever like everybody else, whatever, that maybe people be like, judging you, kind of like, I don't know, like knowing what you were doing. Maybe somebody's saying, what are you on a diet? Why aren't you having another piece of cornbread? And that feels different. People are, seeing things different, and then feeling uncomfortable with that fear. Interestingly enough, I had it the other way around, where I felt like I got shamed. I was a personal fitness trainer when I was 19. And I think that this is where one of the little loops got like wormhole caught in my head because I had just started personal training. I was 19. I was in the supermarket. My partner, who I lived with at the time, he asked me for Captain Crunch to bring home. And I had like 2 boxes of Captain Crunch in the shopping cart. And as I saw this new client heading towards me in the aisle, I started to feel really hot in my face. And I was like trying to like go in front of the cart. And she like peered in the cart. And I know that she didn't, she was like, oh, Captain Crunch. Oh, so you don't eat really good all the time, do you? And I was like, no, this isn't for me. I like started to panic, absolutely panic. And it wasn't until this healing journey, because that's really where I started to hide and I started to binge in private. And then you would never see me in a million years. If I was ordering something, it was like a standard, like almost like a uniform: salad, chicken on the side, dressing on the side. It's just like you would never. And I remember when I actually healed from the inside, I remember being at some event and they had bagels there, and I had a bagel and cream cheese or whatever. And I remember taking a bite of it, and it was a friend of mine's husband said something like, "Oh, Lisa, what? You're eating a bagel and cream cheese, not scooped out bagel?" Like, like there was this words that were said. And I remember it was the first time that I wasn't afraid of someone else looking at what I was eating, judging what I was eating, and I just took the bite and I kept chewing. And then like they made another comment and I said, yeah, I eat bagels. Wow, I didn't know that. I thought you were always dieting. And then I just used one of the beautiful tools that we have called the silent space. And that was it. And it was so amazing because it was the first time that I knew that I was healed. Like I no longer worried about what other people would think if I wasn't eating the diet food. And so that's an interesting piece, because as we can see, the weight that was on the inside of me that you might not have seen on the outside, and the weight that was inside of you that maybe you did see it on the outside, was really the same weight. Yeah.
Right.
Kind
And
of
I think,
cool.
it offers peace inside of me and the freedom to, make decisions on my own, because I think that when I would get upset or when my feelings would get hurt or whatever, that I didn't have that strength or that ability to have that freedom to say something or to walk away or whatever. I just automatically, man, I hit the kitchen, and 15 minutes later I'm like, what happened? Oh my gosh.
And then
And
subconsciously, you get to almost blame the other person.
mhm,
Subconsciously, you do. You
yeah,
get to,
even
you
though,
get,
yeah, I knew that it was a lot inside of me, and I just tried different things and nothing was working until I got to you. And somehow, some way with working through it, it's gained me life, that I thought I had lost. I really didn't foresee losing weight, and I didn't foresee feeling better about myself and having that freedom and having the ability to say, no, I don't want to eat right now. Maybe I'll cook you, I'll cook my husband a meal, and then I don't sit down with him because I'm not hungry, and I'm comfortable just saying I'm not hungry right now.
I think I
And
remember the first time you had shared that you guys had been driving somewhere and there maybe was a ice cream truck or something, like soft serve, and like that would have been like something you two would have done together. And I think I remember him saying like, "Oh, there's an ice cream truck. This is what we're gonna do," and you were like, "Thank you, I'm good." Like, and it was like, okay, well, you can get some if you want. So, like, it just wasn't. I remember you sharing that. It just like literally wasn't a big deal anymore. That's the thing. Once you get a taste of your own power, you're not hungry for anything else. But that doesn't mean that you won't want something at any time. Like, it's just you're free. Like the rules go away because you can trust your own self to decide what it is that you want, what you don't want. And there's no like, there's no judgment coming from yourself. And so then even if somebody says like, what, you always eat ice cream, it doesn't even like, you don't even hear it because it doesn't feel like there's any reason. It's like, okay. And like, it doesn't matter anymore.
I'm trusting the decisions that I make in regard to every aspect of my life. It's not just about food. It's not just about outside world that, may be critical or whatever. It's me deciding what I want, when I want it, and I'm okay with that now.
We call those micro decisions. And the way that you stay more connected to your spiritual self, your soulfulness, because everybody has integrity and intuition, and everybody has that available, but it gets covered up by that immature voice, that childish voice. And I guess if we want to call it like the ego side, or for us in Crush That Food Thing self-discovery system, we call it the Broken Heart Island Girl. And these are just little names just to kind of see the flip side of the coin, where fear's on one side and love is on the other. And love, if you stay connected and aligned with your self-worth, then you're always going to make the right decision, because integrity is one path that you can never get lost on. But if you are, breaking the bond and the trust with yourself by listening to that immature version of yourself just chattering away, having you make wrong decision after wrong decision after wrong decision in the trajectory towards where you are 100 pounds more than you are now, you are on high blood pressure, high heart rate medication, diabetes medication. I mean, I'm certain that affected your sleep, your digestive system, your, maybe headaches,
So
anything, your skin, like everything, your hair, every part of you. And so when people try and put like the symptoms first, and they're like, well, I can't sleep and I need to lose weight and I'm exhausted and my sugars are off and my blood pressure's off, and they think about like fixing those symptoms. Well, weight is a symptom of an underlying problem. All of those things, as we see from this podcast alone, are symptoms of underlying problems. As soon as you fix the underlying problem, within less than 2 years, your body, given half the chance, and actually you've given it all the chance, has healed itself. And so now suddenly decisions you used to make aren't being made. And so that means that you're going to continue to go, they call it like a 1% trajectory at a time, just one first right next step at a time. But the thing is that you started with the first right step, which was to get off of the I got to lose weight train and get on the I have to gain a new perspective. That's what you did. You ended up getting on a different track, a different space. And we don't think about it as being on track or off track, but you split and you went in a direction towards where you could gain a new perspective, which is why you've been able to lose 100 pounds. So as we close off here, is there maybe like one concept or maybe one, I don't know, piece of advice or anything that you'd like to give to somebody who's watching right now or who's
I
listening?
think for anybody watching this, I think the biggest thing is to start trusting that voice inside of yourself, and don't worry if things aren't happening at top speed or anything else. Like so many of these things, oh, you can lose. I was reading something about, I don't remember what it was, a tea or something. Well, you could lose 20 pounds in the next 2 weeks, and I thought, oh my God, I can't, I don't want to lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks. I think my skin would go, bleh, you know. So, so I think my word of advice to anyone or thinking, about doing this is take your time, think about it all, and allow these things to come out so that they can see the light of day, and but it's not fast. You know, the work that you have to do has taken you your whole life to get up to this point. So if you're expecting to be healed in 6 months or whatever and things to be good, that's not going to work. It takes a little time, and you've got to learn to trust yourself.
Yeah. Your pace is the best pace.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. All right. Thank you so much, Laurie, for joining us today. And for anybody who wants a little bit more information about what we do, we have a brand new website. So you can just go to coachlisacallahan.com. You can check some things out. Actually, there's some testimonials there from Laurie and from a lot of our other students. And until next time, my friends, bye for now.
All right, my beautiful friend, that brings us to the end of another episode from the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening today and took something from our conversation that you are going to put into immediate action. I love spending time with you and would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with at least one friend today who you think might be struggling too. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any other amazing topics. And please, please do leave me a review. It would mean the world to me. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.